Hi everyone. Good morning. It's morning for me. This is, tomorrow is New Year's Day. So it's a beautiful day here in Santa Barbara. And this will be the last of my three-part installment introducing the course. And today I want to talk about the sort of nuts and bolts, like the course website, what you'll be doing, things like that, so you understand the expectations and how to navigate and all. But first, I want to address something that whenever I do in class, and I try to do it every year, people always start laughing, but I need to do it, and I'll explain why. And that is address the issue that this is supposed to be an easy class. If you go online, like to ratemyprofessor.com, people will tell you, people do it a lot, that is an easy A. I'm not sure why they do. I'm not sure if it's just the people who self-select into, go online to make a comment or how that works. But the fact is, it is not an easy A. And I say that not just, my opinion. I'm saying, having taught this course before, having taught English 22, which is similar with respect to grading, every year, the average is in B range. Most people will get a B in this class. Now, if you do the math and think about it, since, a number of people do get A's, that means quite a few people do lower than B range. People, by the dozens, fail this class every year. And I understand that if you're doing something like taking it pass fail, and by the way, if you're taking it pass fail, I don't know, and the TAs don't know. Sorry, there's an airplane flying above. I suspect that you can hear it. Well, I can't see it, but hopefully it's moving away. But we don't know if you're taking it pass fail. We just give you a grade, and then the registrar, the system, automatically converts that to a pass or fail. So I realize there's some people who aren't going to sweat trying to get an A because they're only taking it pass fail. That's okay. I mean, hopefully you'll engage with the material. I think it is important material. I think personally it should be important to you, but okay. But what happens is, because there's the expectation that this is an easy class, and that's why I'm addressing it, people will come into it and say, well, I'm just, I'm not going to put that much time in it. It's, I'm taking it for, sorry, it's another sound. It's a siren. It's usually not a very, it's not like I live in a high crime rate area here where there's sirens all the time, but I remember last time I did one of these, we got one. But anyhow, because people have the expectation it's an easy course, and they're just taking it for a G requirement, it's a lower division class, they don't put time in it, and then suddenly they realize at some point, like a third of the way into the class, that they have a problem, that they've been scoring low, and that they will not be able to get the grade they want, and in fact not be able to get an A if they've already done poorly. It is an easy class, and I'll go on record saying this, and I think anyone should be able to get an A if you put the time into it and do what needs to be done. And that's why I have to say, and sometimes I do look at ratemyprofessor.com. I went on recently, and I want to quote what I read, what someone wrote, and this was about English 22, the class that just finished. Quote, if you put in 1 hour per week, you should get an A. That's just not helpful. And the reason for that is, so let's talk about that class. The requirements are somewhat different in there, but everyone had to watch a documentary. That was an hour and a half per week, or the equivalent in films. And you had to make a comment. If you go online and look at those comments, they're all quite long, about a half an hour for a comment. We're 2 hours into what you need to do every week. It's a literature course, and that's not taking into account doing the reading, which is another hour or two to do the reading. So now we're at 4 hours in the course. And I'm not sure what this person meant, but the lectures themselves were about an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half each. So that 4 hours just jumped to 7 hours. I don't know how you can think that you can just put an hour in. I mean, even if you're not paying attention during the lectures, you have to, during the documentaries, no, you have to watch them. So it's just not helpful, because if you're here taking this course with that expectation, let me tell you now, that's not going to work. And okay, I don't know what your schedule is. I don't know what your life is. Maybe you don't have the opportunity to put in the time. Okay, but then you probably shouldn't be taking the class. The reason I say this is because, the fall and winter term kind of go right into each other. We don't have that much time off. And I just got done dealing with many, many emails at the end of the term, people writing to me panicked that they were failing the course, that they had a D grade which wouldn't convert to a pass, and they were failing for that reason, that they wanted to get an A and they didn't understand why they got a B minus, and could I raise their grade, could we do extra credit, and I was not able to do that. And just so we're very clear, this is too big a class that we can provide the option of like everybody doing extra credit or something. If it were a smaller 15 student seminar, maybe I could say go ahead and write an extra paper or something, but that's not going to be an option here. There will be no option for extra credit, and the grade is what it is. The good news is you can follow your grade on Gaucho Space. You can follow every quiz on Gaucho Space. You can look at the midterm on Gaucho Space. Once the TAs review the comments, you can see if you're getting full credit for them. You can follow all this and should follow it, so you know what's going on. So it's not like suddenly in the the middle of the term, after the midterm, you see your grade for the first time and realize you're doing poorly. You can follow it all the time, and if you're not doing well, you can do a self-diagnostic regarding that. So if you're not putting in the time in the readings, doing it carefully enough, and you find out that you did poorly on the first quiz or so, not to worry, it doesn't count for that much of the grade. You can always boost it up by doing more work, boost up the total grade by doing more work and doing better. Okay, that's all I want to say regarding it, but it's not an easy class if you don't put in the work. If you put in the work, I really do think it's an easy class, but don't get those two things mixed up. Okay, so what I want to do, as advertised, is to talk about what we're actually doing in class. So let me jump to the course website. This is it here. If you need to get to it, I've sent you links. Let me pop on here for a minute. I've sent you links regarding this material. If you don't remember, just remember the course is Climate Crisis 101. It's obviously English 23, but has that name. If you put in your browser climatecrisis101.com, you'll go to my website, which will lead you here. If you remember my name, Ken Hiltner, you do kenhiltner.com, it'll do the same. So this is what the course website looks like. I'll get out of the way here for a moment. Oh, sorry about that. That wasn't supposed to happen. This is what you actually see when you come to the page. It's a picture of the Thomas Fire, which was just 2 years ago, and we'll be talking about the wildfires in California and the role that climate change is playing in them. But anyhow, if you scroll down, this is what you see. This page I've asked you to read. This is the landing page, the main page, and it has a lot of material here on things just like how to navigate the site, and that's worth noting. Here there's a little hamburger menu. If you pop here, scroll down to Climate Crisis 101, it'll give you a quick access to everything, and including the individual weeks. And you may want to do that because those weeks, that's really where you're going to live during the courses in the weekly material. But also information like the course overview and things that you need. It's kind of a long page, sorry for that, but it's an important page because you should know about the class rationale and all that. You go here and you click on Table of Contents, and I would suggest you do that. You're going to get a large, basically, map of the site, but since it's organized like a book, it's set up like a table of contents as well. This can also, some of this is duplicated in the online menu I showed you there, which is an abbreviated table of contents, but this one breaks into more detail there. So on that little hamburger menu, it just says course lectures, but here it gives you all the course lectures that we have and my introduction to the course readings and all. What these are, if you click on any one of these, and let's do that, it will take you to the, here it is, the lecture itself. You can get this material on the individual pages too, and I'll show you that. But if you want to, and you have an option here with this lecture, you can either watch it, so I'll click it here, and here I will pop up, but I will stop that for a moment. Kind of crazy to see me giving a lecture on the lecture, but you can either watch it here, and again, I'll show you how you'll primarily be watching it on the individual weekly pages. But this is a script of what I actually say there. This is not a transcript in the sense of a transcript is created after a talk, and it follows exactly what the speaker was saying, like I'm doing now. Some of it, a lot of this, all of this is sort of off the top of my head. But here, because this is structured like a book, this is actually a script. I actually read from this. And actually what I'm looking in now is a little teleprompter, and this is verbatim what I said. So what that means is you have two options here with lectures, so it's worth noting. You can watch them or you can read them. The other important thing about this, if you go to this page and print this out, you can either print it physically out onto paper or print it as a PDF, in which case, either case, you can use this while you're watching the lecture. So what I mean by that is, either using the paper or a PDF app, you can go ahead and make notes while the lecture is going on. And I think you might find that useful because you won't have to worry about writing down what I'm saying, because you'll have in front of you what I'm saying, but you can put your commentary on it. I have to tell you that, let me go back to the syllabus here, and let me show you one little thing and then I'll make a comment. At any point in time, this little chevron, hopefully you can see it in the video, if you click this, it'll scroll you back to the top of the page at any time. But what I was beginning to say is I have colleagues, and I'll shift back here, who tell me that I'm absolutely crazy for giving this information in written form because no one will watch the videos. I hope you watch the videos, but you don't have to, and different people process material differently. If you would prefer just to read that material, that's fine. And what it all comes down to, and because we're doing something very different here, and I'm interested in doing this not just because of COVID, but in thinking of ways of making your experience better and more productive. And that's why all this for English 23 was pretty much set up last year before COVID. So it was a natural to segue into what we're doing here. It's interesting to think about. But in any event, all that I care about, really, all that I care about is that you engage with this material. I want you to think about the climate crisis. I want you to think about how it impacts your life, how it will impact your life, how it's going to change the world, and how we can change to mitigate it. I don't care whether you read a lecture. I don't care whether you watch the lecture. I just care that you do that. Different people process material differently. If you're a visual person, if you're a writing person, it doesn't matter. Whatever works for you works. I will tell you, unfortunately, when we get to the deep dive lectures, because I'm going to be doing those in the course of the term, you won't have quite that option. You will be able to read it as a transcript on YouTube, because that won't be a script. I'll explain to you when I get to those, and they do they are a significant part of the course. So, but anyhow, you do have a lot of material here. So remember this table of contents here on the landing page. I put it sort of front and center. You may not want to use it, but anyhow, going to the syllabus, I've required you to read this too. And this has a number of sections, as you can see here: the weekly schedule, which we're going to focus on, assignments, assessments, frequently asked questions. Frequently asked questions do go down. You're supposed to be reading this all anyhow, but read it, because it has things like, if you want to join the honors section, how to go about it. If you want to pose questions in the course, how to go about it. So read that. I want to skip over for a moment the weekly schedule to get to assignments. Important to read the syllabus because it explains how the assignments work, how each of the readings works, what the expectations are. It explains the lectures. It explains the course films. And then it has a second part. The first is just the assignments. This is the assessments. Read this over. You're going to want to know this. This is how the quizzes work. The quizzes are half of the grade, 50%. They weren't that way last year, and this is an acknowledgement of COVID. So the goal here is to make everything sort of lower stakes, so that you're not like, well, last time the midterm were 35% of the grade, the finals were 35% of the grade. They were huge, right? And if you did poorly on it, you're kind of of screwed. But here you have the opportunity over 10 weeks to work through that material by way of the quizzes. And in fact, as I note here, and again, read this in detail because it explains it, the quizzes are drawn from a pool of quizzes. So if you, a pool of questions. So if you think you can take the exam and then, quick email your friends and tell them exactly all the questions, it won't work that way. Gaucho Space, which is based on Modal, is randomly drawing questions from a pool and putting them into a quiz for you, for many questions, so that virtually no two questions will be alike. And if you tell people the questions that no two exams will be alike, because the questions will be all different in different order. And if you were to tell someone, your question, they won't be the same questions that they would have. But that same pool of questions that we're going to build over the first 5 weeks, that will be what's used to create the midterm as well. It'll be drawn from those questions as well. So you may very likely encounter a question or two that you've already seen in the quizzes. But that also means that the midterm is really everything that you already know and already have been tested on anyhow. You want to review for it, but that makes it kind of lower stakes too. And also the case that if you go down here, and when we get to the midterm, that they're each now worth 15% of the grade. I mentioned they were worth 35% last year. Now just 30% for the pair of them. So, but again, it's this material anyhow. But read all this because it goes through this in detail. It also notes here, and do save the date. How this works is, well, I'll go back to the quizzes. How the quizzes work is every week they open at 6 a.m. on Thursday of the week, 6 a.m. Pacific time. You have, and it tells you, till Monday to take them and finish them. And they are short, but I'm going to tell you a couple things about them, and I have it in detail here. You cannot go back once you take a question. And I know people are going to be annoyed by that and going to write to me about it. They did like last term. The reason for that is, and I explain here in detail, last year when the final for this exam was online because of COVID, when I decided to do it that way, I began receiving emails, a number of them, people telling me that there were organized efforts being put together to cheat on the exam, that quote, teams of people. I actually have a quote from one of those emails, were being formed. That approach won't work this way because, so in theoretically how a quiz could work, even though the quiz is timed, you only have a certain amount of time to take it. What could happen is that a team of people could get together, divvy up the questions, go through the material, which a lot of it's online here, or search, the internet for it, and then come up with the answers and then systematically go through it. Well, you really can't do it that way because you only have a certain amount of time, which is 1 minute per question. And if you go ahead and, spend all that time trying to search, you're going to eat up your time and it just won't work. I realize, unfortunately, for all the honest people, and I realize that's overwhelmingly the class, that's vexing and frustrating because, it's nice to be able to go back at the end and allocate time and all. It seems the fairest way to do it. And why this is fair to everyone, not only in that people could take an unfair advantage by cheating, but I am open to the fact that if the course grades are low at the very end, and that would be in part as a function of all the exams, I am open to putting a curve in to raising it up. But if people have ruined the curve by cheating and raising that disproportionately, that could be a problem. So let me go back to this. Whoops. Sorry, I keep doing that. Okay, so this is again the website. I think I was not looking at you, looking at you rather than showing this when I was just doing it. But okay, sorry. More material here, how the comments work, how all that's done. Do read all this material. It's important, and you can see there's so many dates, so much information here about how to upload your comments and all. I won't go over it now. I won't bore you with it, but do look at that. And here again, frequently asked questions. And remember this little chevrons here if you want to get back to the top, which is what I want to do now. And what I want to do is go to an individual page. Let's go to the page for the first week. Basically, this is where you're going to spend most of your time during during the term doing your work. So this is the weekly assignment. It tells you, for example, here, first week we're reading David Wallace Wells, The Uninhabitable Earth. Everything is available online one way or another, and you don't have to buy a book for this course. So this tells you how to do the reading. Where it is. You'll notice with this one, for example, there's extra material here. So I note first that I archived a copy because New York Magazine, if you read too many articles, they don't let you watch it for free anymore, read it for free. If you happen to have been reading it, and then you won't be able to get access to it. So I put an archived one by way of the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine. And that's there. But also, I talk about other things that David Wallace Wells has written, a book that came out of this article, other articles that followed this, interviews that he's done. Why did I put all this there? Well, first, you don't need it. You just need to read that one article. But you might really get interested in the article and want to read more. So I try to provide you with resources for doing that. It may be the case you don't want to read more about it right now, and now it will pop on the screen, but want to go back to it. And why would that happen? Well, maybe a year from now, you're deciding to write a paper for another course, and you think, well, gee, what was that article? It's really interesting. You'll go back here, and because this is all, openly, public material, you'll be able to find it all, and suddenly you may want to read this additional material. It's also there as a resource for people who aren't taking the class, and that would be like, instructors, professors, high school teachers, or whatever, who want to read this material further because they're teaching a class based on some of this. So, yeah, let me pop off so I don't block it. Here are the films. Now, the films are a little confusing. And not every week, but a lot of the weeks. So I note here, if you've not taken English 22, that's Intro to Literature and the Environment, last year or this past year, and again, I note that 1 in 6 people of the class have taken that. So if you've not, if you've not taken that, please watch. Do I have that correct here? Right. If you haven't taken it, sorry, confused myself. Please watch the film Before the Flood. Then, if you go down here, if you have taken it, please instead watch an inconvenient sequel. So, what's this all about? Well, I wanted to put together a list of, and now I'll pop back on screen, and I'll try to remember to get off in a minute. I tried to put together a list of, documentaries, films that would be just terrific on individual topics. Let's skip this week for a minute and go to something like food systems. Well, the number one film that I think it's good to show people is Cowspiracy. Maybe you've seen it. It's not and as an aside here, it's not a perfect film at all. There are problems with it, not the least of which Kip Anderson, the filmmaker, the star, lies during it and says that, greenhouse gas emissions, half of them on the planet, beef is responsible for. And that's a lie. A lie is a strong word here. It's not accurate because even though he bases that on a study from over a decade ago, in the meantime, since then, even the people who did that study retracted it, and people have made very clear that it's more like 15% of greenhouse gas emissions for the U.S. come from the beef industry. 15% is still a lot. The fact that Kip Anderson didn't retract that and all, that's why I called it a lie. Lie is a strong word, I guess. But here's the thing, it's still a really good film. None of these films are perfect. If I would have made them myself, I probably would have made them differently, but of course they wouldn't be very good films because I'm not a filmmaker. But they're still useful. And a friend of mine, John Foran, a professor at UCSB, shows documentaries as well. He also does what I do, works with climate and climate justice as well. He does exit polls for all his films. In other words, what do people think about the films, afterwards? And overwhelmingly, students found Cowspiracy the most, important film they watched of any of his. So that's why we're watching it. But on the other hand, it's not the whole story, because Cowspiracy talks in terms of food systems about why we need to shift to a largely plant-based diet. But the fact is, that's not even the number one thing that we need to do in terms of climate regarding this. We need to waste less food. Wasting food is a bigger problem than not going to a plant-based diet in the U.S. In other words, if you could pick one of the two to do, if we could eliminate waste altogether, that would be the one, because it's bigger than if we all shifted to plant-based diets. There's another film, not a perfect one either, called Waste It, the story of food waste, that is a good introduction to this. Now, ideally, if we had unlimited time and you had, instead of 1 hour, if you're spending 10 or 20 hours a week on this course, I would have had you watch both each week too. But that's a little too much to ask. But for the people who've taken English 22, I give them the opportunity to see this second film, because English 22 required them to watch Cowspiracy. Now I'm requiring that group of people to watch Waste It. And by the way, when I say require, I do mean require in the sense that I have both rosters and have run the two and have broken out a list of the people who've taken English 22 in 2019 or 20 and supplied that to the TAs. So the TAs will be looking, and if you've taken English 22 and you're responding just to Cowspiracy and all the first choice films, that'll be a problem. So do it this way. And if you're a little crestfallen that you're not getting to watch both, well, you could take English 22 in next fall when the instructions will be reversed and you'll be required not to watch Cowspiracy but Waste It for that course. Or everything is available on Gaucho Space anyhow, so if you really are interested in this and food systems are something that intrigues you, well, go watch both films. But anyhow, let me jump back to what's on the screen. So that's why it is set up this way. So not every week, some weeks. So the second week, you'll be watching a film called Fire. And I'm trying to think about. No, you actually second week you'll have two options too. But there will be a week or two where you have only one option. But anyhow, that's how the films work. There are also lectures that I give. These are lectures on topics, and you're required to watch these too. So if you're following what the requirements are for the course every week, you have a course reading, you have a documentary, in some case multiple shorter films, and you have lectures to watch by me. These can be watched directly from this site. So if you click here, this is me, and if you click on this, this is actually streaming from YouTube, and I have the muted here
across the planet
about the topic. You're required to watch these two, and because I'm introducing things. Also, a little confusion. Okay, well, let's go to assessments. First, you have to do the weekly quiz. Every week, take the quiz. It's detailed here on the individual page. It's detailed in the syllabus page, so go over that material. Every week, you have to watch, well, after reading The Uninhabitable Earth, that's the reading for this week, what you have to do is make a comment on YouTube regarding it. If you can't get access to YouTube, I'll explain how to do that in a minute. But you have to make a comment on it. This week, as it turns out, I have a little introductory video on the readings that explains how I'm doing it and why. But basically, every week you're going to see just one thing here, which is my introduction to the reading. It is a video introduction on YouTube that, again, you can watch it right here from the course website. But you might want to watch that before you do the reading. It's your choice. You could watch it after too, or you could watch it both times. But what I do in that video is, this is me introducing the reading to you. It's giving it context, explaining it, little things about it, raising questions for you and all. That's posted to YouTube, which then gives you the opportunity to comment on the reading by way of my video. So you're really going to be principally talking about the reading, but it'll be informed by my video insofar as the context I give you or the questions that I ask or whatever. If you go to YouTube right now and look, you will see hundreds and hundreds of comments already on this particular video. And why? It's the same video that I had last year, and it hasn't substantively changed, so I thought it would be useful to leave it up. So that's part of what you have to do. And again, the syllabus details how the comments work. But you have to make a comment on the course reading by way of my video on YouTube. Okay, there's some people that do not have access to YouTube. It may be barred in your country, which it is. I've been working for years on an online conference model, and we've been trying to subvert those countries that barred YouTube by having them stream from EDU websites. And for a long time it was working, but it's not working now. So some countries, China would be an example at this moment, we haven't figured out a way to to get things from YouTube to you. So, not a problem. I've uploaded, well, first off, that presents a more basic problem because everything I just said, these videos, the ones I'm showing you here, are streaming from YouTube. If you don't have access to YouTube, no worries, because I've uploaded them all to Gaucho Space, and I'll show you the Gaucho Space page in a minute, and you'll see how that works. So not to worry. If you're using a VPN, and it slows down YouTube or whatever, don't worry, turn your VPN off, go to your registered EDU website, which is Gaucho Space, and you can watch the videos there, not streaming from YouTube, but from UC servers by way of Panopto. So that should solve the problem. Then you have the other problem of how to respond to YouTube. Well, that might also be a problem if you don't have access to it. And VPN, you might be able to get access to it. It's slower, but you wouldn't be watching. You'd just be commenting. But to solve all that problem, we've opened up a separate forum on Gaucho Space. So you won't be commenting on YouTube there. You'll be commenting on Gaucho Space for the weekly readings here. Also, it works here for the films as well. So for documentaries, again, this week's unusual. We have a second one. The first one here, it's a little introduction. But then we have the films that you'll be watching. And again, depending on whether you've taken English 22 or 23, you'll be watching Before the Flood or An Inconvenient Sequel. This is what you'd be watching here, and I'll click on it to show you. This is, again, me. This is the introduction that I've posted on YouTube as well. So the documentary doesn't play from YouTube, of course. You can watch that on Gaucho Space. You can watch all the documentaries on Gaucho Space. But what does play is a short, usually under 10-minute video of me doing the same thing I did with the readings. That is, giving you context. Let me pop on here. Giving you context, maybe raising some questions. So you may want to watch this little video that I do beforehand, before doing it. But then it's the same exact thing as the weekly readings. You then make a comment on YouTube regarding what I've said. And keep in mind, there'll be hundreds of them up already, because that, again, will be from last year. Everything is the same, though. Pop on here and try to remember not to pop off. Try to remember to pop off. Everything is the same with respect if you don't have access to YouTube. And what I mean by that is all the films are loaded up to Gaucho Space. You can watch my introductions on YouTube, on Gaucho Space. I'll show you how. And you can make a comment on a Gaucho Space forum instead. But if you think about it then, let me get off here. Hold on, I'll get back here. Sorry. If you think about it, and it's important to realize, you have obligations here for the course regarding assessments for every week. One, you need to take that quiz, which is important. Two, you need to make 2 comments every week. One to the course reading, one to the course film. It's a little trickier because there's another thing, and it's outlined clearly on the syllabus and individual pages, but I'm going to repeat it again just so you know. So let's say for readings, there are 5 readings for the first half of the class, right? We have a reading every week. We have 10-week term, 5 weeks, 5 readings. 3 of those responses that you make, the comments that you make, whether they're on YouTube or if you use the backup forum on Gaucho Space, 3 of the 5 that you make have to be to another person in the class. So it's not like you're just making a comment and responding to my email. You're responding to other people. And you could respond not just to someone directly, you could respond to a response. So someone could post something, someone could make a reply to that, and you could reply to that reply. It doesn't matter, but 3 of the 5 have to be to someone else. So why is it we're doing it this way? Well, obviously to get you talking as much as we can, given this kind of environment. And it's actually, if you go and look, last year, you'll see that this works out pretty well, because what happens is certain comments begin to resonate with people, and you'll see that certain comments receive a lot of replies. In some cases, dozens of replies. And in part, it could just be people just start replying, I don't know. But you'll look, and I think it's clear that there's some statements that people are making are very strong. Sometimes, sharing personal things, which you don't have to do, but some people do, and it really, resonates with people. So keep that in mind, though. Do not forget that you have to reply to other people most of the time, 3 out of 5 times, or in terms of the whole course, 6 out of 10 times. That's both 3 out of 5 times for the first 5 films, and 3 out of 5 times for the first 5 readings. You have to do that. So let's pop back to the website. That's pretty much it. Yeah. There's one thing that's not here, though, and it's a little confusing, I guess. And let me pop back on here. And it's that there'll be other lectures on here. So, all right, so I'm going to bounce back here again. Notice that for the weekly readings, when we're down here with assessments, that there were actually 2 videos here. One with this introduction, and then this is the main one that you'll be responding to. And in fact, if you note here, I say here, after watching the above lecture snippet, please comment to this one. So I just put it down there again. And in fact, what I did is you click it here, this will, I'll show you, this will actually open up right on YouTube, so you can make the comment directly there. I did that for the first couple times so you know that what was going on. Hold on one second. Okay, what will happen is there'll be another film referenced, another lecture referenced, and that'll generally be down at the bottom of the requirements. So that will not be at the assessment, but it'll be here. So where am I? Here's the reading, but it'll be referenced here. I can pop back. And this is what I call the deep dive lectures. So there will be 2 of those every week. There's not a deep dive for the first week, and I'll explain why. But basically, just so you know, you're watching 2 videos this week, the bigger, the broad introduction to the films, and then the one about the individual film. Well, you'll be watching 2 every week. It'll be the one about the individual film, and then the deep dive. So what's the deep dive thing about? Well, back up a little, the way that discussion works in a traditional classroom. So let's talk about a class that's really geared toward discussion. And what I'm thinking about here are small seminars of like 10, 15 students. That would be the standard at a lot of schools. And so how does that work? Well, let's talk about readings. So everyone does all the reading. Hopefully everyone does all the readings. You come to class, and then the professor usually has a little blurb at the beginning, a tiny little lecture. Well, that's what my little videos are introducing the reading. That's the one you're going to be commenting on. So that's taking the place of that in a seminar. Then what would happen? Well, students would make comments on it as well, make comments to the professor. And typically the way I conduct a seminar is at that point I would, before I even comment on anyone else's, I would ask if anyone wanted to comment on it. So in other words, the students like to chime in or raise questions and all. And then after that happened, then I would say something. That's exactly how it works here. You're coming in not to the classroom, but you're coming to YouTube or to Gaucho Space Forum. You're hearing what I had to say, and then you're making a comment. And 3 out of 5 times every term, someone else is commenting on yours. That's the way that it will happen. What's going to happen in the deep dives is I am going to pull from the Gaucho Space comments, or mostly the YouTube comments, a few that are particularly interesting. They may not be the best ones. I may miss yours. I'm sorry if I do. But it may be that it makes a certain point that I want to address. Or I often look to see if there are some comments that are getting, dozens of comments. I am looking to see if maybe I want to bring those up. So what's going to happen when you actually look at those deep dive lectures is you're going to basically be not looking at me, but you're going to be looking at YouTube comments, and I will pull them from both YouTube and Gaucho Space, and then I will be commenting on the comments or commenting on the replies. But if you think about it, that's exactly what happens in a seminar where there's a discussion going on. In theory, this is better because people have had more time to make their comments. It could be longer comments, thoughtful comments. Everyone in the room is getting an opportunity to make a comment. Now, you have to watch these deep dive lectures. Why? Well, give you a little hint on, or a little insight into the way professors work. A lecture and a seminar are different pedagogically from the perspective of the instructor. In other words, if I'm in a lecture, I'm giving a lecture, it's all broadcasting. It's just me, sending it out to the ether. Generally, in a very large lecture like ours is when it's in Campbell Hall, there's really not much of an opportunity for people to respond. It's just one-way transmission. As a consequence, as a lecturer, I have to try to cover all the material that I can, as much as I can. And because there'll be no opportunity for me to interact with people. Well, a seminar is different. In theory, in the same period of time, you can get out as much material as an instructor. You can explain as much, but you have to do it interactively. But that's better from my point of view, and that's why, if you look at very expensive schools and all, one of their touting points is they have small lecture seminars. The core class are small seminars, and it's actually true. So, aside from UCSB, the only other places I've taught are Princeton and Harvard, and yeah, the classes are like 10 or 12 students. But we can do something even better here, and having experimented with this last year, I actually believe it's better. Why is it better? Well, first, everyone in the room gets to comment. Second, the comments that students are making are longer. But any event, from my point of view, pedagogically, I want to communicate a lot of information, but because it's a seminar setting, which this is, even though it's a huge lecture, because it's set up this way, I can get out material as a response to people. In other words, imagine a small lecture seminar again. Someone makes a comment. Well, that's an opportunity for me to talk about something that I hadn't done. That's an opportunity for me to deliver more information. It's better because it's tailored to the interests of people in the room, and frankly, it's better because people often remind me of things, and it's better because people bring up things that I had never thought about. We're talking about food systems or whatever, and someone comes with something that's completely different and changes the channel. And someone says, oh, everyone's talking about food-based and, vegan. What about freegans? Wow, that's something I hadn't thought to talk about, but I can talk a lot about being a freegan. So, and this is great because, well, you may not know what a freegan is. I suspect most people listening to this don't know what a freegan is. But that's okay. You may also know what a vegetarian is, but not what a climatarian is. And if someone brought that up or just, said something that made me think of it, I would talk about that. But what that means is, you think about what I just said, this is a way of me delivering information that's not a lecture, but it's still me delivering new information. So let me cut to the chase and tell you why you need to watch this material, these deep dives, is because I am delivering new material there. These are lectures in a way, in the same way that a seminar, some of the time the instructor is lecturing. So you have to watch it because, cutting to the chase, material delivered during the deep dives will be on the quizzes. It's a little awkward, a little odd, but it's the only way I can think to set it up insofar as the quizzes will have, so say we're in week 2. Well, week 2 you're going to have new readings, which are sort of the local situation regarding the climate crisis. That you're going to have that material, so you're going to be tested on that reading and that film, but the deep dives are going to be referencing from the week before. So it's a little odd because you're going to have, me talking about the previous week's readings as well as the present one. But it's good though because it's sort of a review at the same time, or a way of everything sort of dovetailing together and pulling it together. But do make sure that you watch those deep dives, and for me they're a real treat because it allows me to interact with people. Incidentally, last year when English 23 took place, I developed this approach, and I was very happy with it, I should say. But that class took place in person, so everyone came and sat in Campbell Hall while I did the deep dives, and I was doing that every week. And you'll note if you go back to ratemyprofessor.com, you'll see people were very frustrated by that because they didn't know why they had to show up just just to see me doing that. Well, you may get frustrated because you have to see me doing it now by watching it. But again, think of it as that's the seminar, really. I mean, it's a lecture, but that is the seminar taking place. That is me interacting with comments, and I learn a great deal. I mean, to think that, why professors like doing these seminars is because it is great. You learn a lot, and professors really, really like doing graduate seminars for that reason, because you have people who are really burrowing in the material, raising all sorts of questions, and, that informs your thinking, informs the thinking of the instructor, and it does mine too. So I cherish these because I benefit by them greatly. Okay, let's go back to the website. I think that's pretty much all that you need to do with the website here. But let's jump now to Gaucho Space. So Gaucho Space here, a few things you'll note. First, there's a course Q&A set up, and I explained this in the syllabus, but I also explained it here. If I click on it here, what this is about, as I note here, questions don't email, instead post them here on the course Q&A. So why is that? Well, people often will email me the same question, 1,000 people again and again and again. This simplifies it for me, but also this will create a lasting or very quickly become a really good resource to you. So if you have questions, it's not that I just answered them for you or you send them to your TA. And by the way, I will be monitoring this Q&A, and the TAs will be monitoring it too, so that, if you have questions, we'll try to jump in. And I explain here, actually, I encourage you, the student, to also jump in on those questions too. But that's what that Q&A is about. Also, here are my Zoom office hours. And by the way, I'm recording this before the course has started, so this Gaucho Space will probably look different when you log on to it, in that the TAs will probably be, putting in their Zoom office hours and all. But the way mine work, and it's very odd, they're between 8 and 9 p.m., 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night, Pacific Standard Time, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So why the wacky time? Well, as I mentioned in passing, for a while I've been developing this online conference model where we really get international involvement, and we try to make sure that people from all over the planet can participate. But to do that, we had to really be mindful of times, even though those conferences are built on the asynchronous model. But what I tried to come up with was the time that would work best for most people in the class. 8 o'clock may be a little awkward for people here in California. Most people are in California in the class, but it's kind of workable. It's after dinner, maybe when you're actually sitting down to get to work, so it should work for you. It'll especially work for people on the other side of the planet, especially, if you're in China. This will be in the morning for you. And the idea here is to give everybody as much as possible an opportunity to comment on to come to office hours. So each week, and again, this week will show up more. There'll be more on this week once it gets populated. But each week you'll have a number of things here. So first, just to note, remember I said that people who couldn't comment on YouTube, well, here are the forums opened up on Gaucho Space. You just comment here, go here. I note if you cannot access YouTube, then make your comment here, and you would just hit reply and do it there. So that's there, so people know. And the other thing, we have the course films. Some of them are available free online, but others are only available by way of DVDs for the most part. But not to worry, they've all been loaded into Gaucho Space. And to make it clear for you, I also put this thing from the individual week. So if you have not taken English 22, then watch Before the Flood, or watch an Inconvenient Sequel. And these stream right from here. It's a little slower than YouTube. The reason I like to have YouTube is because they have a very robust network. Obviously, it's YouTube. But beyond that, because it's very good quality. These, I can tell you right now, are not the best quality. For the most part, they all come from DVDs. So instructional development, which is the office at UCSB, rips the DVDs and uploads them to Gaucho Space. Well, you know, if you're familiar at all with like computer resolution, everybody's talking about 4K, which is so much better than 1080p, which was so much better than 720p. Well, DVDs are back at 480p, so the quality is not so great. And I do note on the individual pages when things are available elsewhere. So if you happen to have Netflix, you know, you might want to watch it on Netflix, especially because when instructional development rips the DVDs, I ask them to put the closed captioning on, which they do a screen recording of it, which means that A, you have to have the closed captioning on. It's not always in the best place, and it looks kind of jagged because it's at 480p. But anyhow, you can watch all the videos from here without a problem. I also have copied the web pages that we just looked at. This should look familiar because this is, sorry, there's another siren here. Part of the problem with the siren thing, and I hope it's not the case, it's usually just helicopters, but I live 4 blocks from the downtown Cottage Hospital in Santa Barbara, and unfortunately, as you know, right now, right before the first of the year, you know, COVID is spreading extraordinarily, and normally there are a lot of helicopters coming through, they're medevacing people in, but I'm wondering now that we heard 2 sirens just in the 50 minutes I've been recording this, that maybe that's what's happening there too. But anyhow, I'm sorry. Okay, back to this. This should look the same. It's because basically what I've done is just dumped the HTML into Gaucho Space here. I cleaned it up a little. But why would you want to come here rather than the course website? Since the course website is, let's be honest, much prettier. But for a couple of reasons. One, the security used for the English department servers is kind of tough. So the IT person who runs the English department servers sets the security pretty high, and people had a little trouble last term sometimes getting onto the course website. Very rarely, and most people resolved it. But if you have trouble at any time, come here because all the information is the same. But this is also for people who don't have YouTube, because these are the videos uploaded to Gaucho Space that I give. So this is my introduction to the climate crisis as a generational issue. Here, remember for reading responses each week I had 2. I have 2. Once this week was the introduction. And Intro to Uninhabitable Earth, they're all right here. So you have both an alternate place to look at this material and to read it if you're wondering what like the reading assignment is, but also you're getting an alternate streaming source here, not YouTube, but Panopto, which is coming out of UC servers, which I doubt there'll ever be a problem with YouTube, not available, but if it's not available to you, because it's not available in your country or so, that's it. So that's the main thing you have to know about the website here. There is Gaucho Cast over here, and you'll see if I clicked here, you'd see all the films. The films are there, but I tried to make it easier than you hunting and pecking and going through Gaucho Space listing to just, for example, put the films right on the individual pages, which are here. So let's go back to the course website, and you can go back at any point to the syllabus here. You can go back at any point to the main page from other pages, and of course remember you have you know, this abbreviated table of contents here. There's one other thing I wanted to show you about this, if I can. Hold on one second. Hold on. Okay, so this is the web page, the main landing page. One thing I didn't notice, see how large the text is here? That's by design. This is roughly 2.5 times larger. It's in a sans serif font that's especially good for people with what are known as print disabilities. And in general, the way this course is, the course material is designed is, well, you can have low vision and still be able to access the material okay. You can also access the material, you can hear a lot of it online, and it's very important to me to make this as accessible as possible. And I have to say, academia in general has dropped the ball during COVID with things like Zoom, where that's not possible, where whole communities of people who are variously abled or disadvantaged because of it. In every way, I tried to make it work for everyone. But this works for everyone else too. So often you think that those sort of accommodations for people who are variously abled don't apply to you. And I have to say that in some ways, for example, a few years ago, I might have mentioned I have a 5-year-old daughter. Well, a few years ago, I was obviously, she's a baby and toddler, pushing her around everywhere in a stroller. Sorry, I'll go back to me. And, for the first time, all these ramps that were in buildings everywhere suddenly became visible to me. I just had never seen them before. But, if you've ever tried to take a stroller down a flight of stairs or up a flight of stairs, it's impossible, scary, and dangerous. And suddenly when you see these ramps, which were there because of the American Disability Act, the ADA, plus other laws like 580 of the Rehabilitation Act, Section 580 Rehabilitation Act, suddenly you realize these can benefit everyone, but at different times. Maybe you think, well, that's still not going to benefit me, but maybe one day you'll have a broken leg or something, and you'll start seeing all those ramps too. So why am I mentioning that? Well, this is good for designed for people, for all sorts of people. But something else that is troubling to me that we've really dropped the ball on is that not everyone has. Okay, I'm going to go back to me again. Not everyone has the same access to the internet in the same way, and that can really disadvantage certain people. And access to the internet is, it can be limited for different reasons. So it can have to do with your race, it can have to do with your income, it can even have to do with your family's educational level. So, for example, if your parents, just have high school educations, it is in fact unlikely that you have broadband internet access in your house, as opposed to if your parents have college educations. Statistically, it well over 90% chance you have internet broadband internet in your home. Similarly, if you're black, it is twice as likely that you have to rely on your phone for internet access than if you were white. So all these issues are at play here. So this website, in different ways, and some of it I actually note in some of the material here. There's a lot of material buried into this website that you may not be interested in, but if you do go and look at course content, you'll see some of this noted. But I tried to make it as accessible as possible. So let's go back to this, and this is it, of course, running on a course website. This is our course website running on a phone. This is the same material. This is it running on a I think 5.7-inch screen, and that large font suddenly is going to make a lot of sense to you, because you can watch everything here. You can watch everything from a phone with this approach. And that, what I mean by that is you can watch the videos, you can watch everything. So in the same way that I suddenly liked having ramps when I was pushing a stroller, you may like this too, even if you have broadband at home or all. Because what this means is, grab your phone, pair of earbuds, and you can go access the course material pretty much anywhere. And some it's a little limited because of the online reading experience, but you'll see when we get to having you read a section of Henry David Thoreau's Walden, I actually put an edition up of Walden using the same approach as I used course website. And all this I've been developing for a number of years because of those online conferences. But I think you'll find that you can pretty much take this course in a very rewarding way from a phone. Now, to go back to this, and I'll run this again, note that the phone is turned horizontally here, which is, I know, different than the way we usually hold phones and read. But if you look at it, these lines have actually been designed at about roughly the same width in terms of the number of characters on screen as a traditional book. And this is very much like reading a book turned this way. So it might be kind of unusual to use it this way, but I think if you do use it this way, you'll find that it works particularly well. You can hold it otherwise, but the site obviously is responsive, and computer programs is a hobby of mine. I've designed it particular to work this way on a phone. Even if you have a smaller phone, like the new iPhone mini or a very large phone, it should still work just as well. So, whoops. So there you go. I think I've covered as much material as I can. I wanted to keep this under an hour. I'm looking down at my timer, which is my phone running there, and I realized I blew it. Sorry, just over an hour. But I wanted you to know as much about how the course is laid out as possible. It's my dog barking in the background. I know it's a lot of material. I know you just had to sit through a lot. But on the other hand, you didn't have to sit through the deep dive lectures this week, so I've tried to balance everything out. Next week, you won't have this introductory material, but you'll be sitting through 2 deep dive lectures in addition to everything else, which again means that you can't do all this in 1 hour a week. This course is going to take some time, but hopefully it's going to prove to be a rewarding course insofar as, you may know a lot about the climate crisis, you may not know a lot about the climate crisis, but hopefully either way you'll know more and you'll be thinking about it more and thinking about, how we can get through this. And again, I just want to keep reiterating, because I know the initial materials are tough. We definitely can get through this, and that's what the course is about, figuring out how. Okay, that'll be it, and thanks for sitting through this, and take care.